A crowded club, neon lights, a Navy SEAL fueled by pride and arrogance forcefully shoves a quiet woman aside, humiliating her in front of hundreds. No one speaks up, she doesn't react, she simply stands unbroken. Moments later, the entire club freezes as a message arrives. The SEAL's expression falls. Whispers rush through the crowd. She isn't just anyone, she commands the entire Pacific Fleet. What began as an act of disrespect becomes a lesson in silent power. And by the end of the night, every person will understand what true leadership looks like. Before we begin, where are you watching from today? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story travels. And please, if stories of silent strength, honor, and true leadership resonate with you, subscribe. Because these stories deserve to be remembered. He didn't see it coming. Move. The SEAL muttered harshly as he pushed her shoulder with deliberate force. She barely shifted, her feet holding ground like anchors in a storm, but the club fell silent. It wasn't the shove that shocked them. It was her stillness afterward. The way she neither pushed back nor flinched. She simply looked at him, not with anger, but with eyes that had already seen war. The music throbbed around them, the smell of sweat and cocktails intermingling with the numbing chill of humiliation. People watched, unsure whether to step in. He towered over her, a man trained to dominate battlefields. She stood calm, dressed simply, wearing the quiet aura of someone accustomed to commanding seas. No one knew her name. Not yet. Her hair, streaked faintly with silver, fell to her shoulders. On her wrist, a discreet bracelet worn metal, engraved with names. 4 of them. Each belonged to someone she'd buried. Her posture was erect, despite the weight of invisible metals, invisible battles. She was a woman who carried oceans in her silence. And for the first 30 seconds of this moment, she said nothing. Only one person noticed the subtle detail, the small pin she wore near her collar, barely visible, but not to those who knew. A metal insignia that represented years of strategic command, the pin of a 4-star admiral, but he didn't see it. The SEAL scoffed, waving her off. People like you don't belong here. The crowd's breath caught. She swallowed, tasting iron from a phantom memory. She remembered cold rain pounding on the deck of an aircraft carrier. The echo of boots as a folded flag was handed to her. She remembered salt water, screams over comms, the sound of a helicopter blade fading as life did. She had buried more than most could comprehend. And every part of her wanted to turn away, but she stayed. Years earlier, she stood on the bridge of the USS Ronald Reagan, the moonlight casting thin lines across her uniform. The taste of instant coffee clung to her tongue. Exhaustion had become a familiar companion. Somewhere deep in Pacific waters her fleet patrolled, she held 250 0 lives in her decisions. The world remembered her as a strategist, a ghost in news headlines, but few knew her by face. She had enlisted at 19 when her mother died of cancer and the Navy became her family. She earned respect, not through rank, but through unwavering commitment. Through nights where she slept in engine rooms to understand what her team endured. Through mornings where she ran drills in freezing rain beside her youngest cadets. She carried the memory of a helicopter crash during a rescue mission. She wasn't aboard, but her closest friend was. The last words over the radio tell her she did everything right. We followed her into the storm because she never left us in calmer seas. That night, she carved their names into the bracelet with her own hands. And so, years later, standing in a nightclub filled with strangers and flashing lights, she remained still when a man tried to erase her with force. To him, she was just another woman in the way. To her, he was another test. The kind no uniform could prepare for. The crowd shifted uneasily, glancing at one another. No one intervened. A few looked away. Their silence turned heavier than the bass coursing through the floors. She stepped aside slightly, not from fear, but to keep her dignity. The seal smirked, rolling his shoulders. He whispered to his friends, something crude. They laughed. She heard every word, but she chose silence. This was not the battlefield she fought on. Her fingers brushed the bracelet. Across the room sat a man dressed in plain clothes, observing quietly. He tapped his phone, a message sent. Foreshadowing had just entered the story. He pushed her again, harder this time. A bartender flinched. A soldier at the back clenched his jaw but didn't move. She steadied herself, breathing deep. The seal snapped, "You don't get to walk through us uninvited. Earn your space." In her mind, waves crashed against the hull of a destroyer. Radar beeps, a storm approaching, words from mentors long gone. Real leaders don't force space, they create it. She looked at him. Calm, unbroken, eyes like calm seas that conceal submarines. No words, just silence, but silence tonight would be her weapon. The quiet observer's phone vibrated. A reply. He stood. He walked toward them and stopped just inches from the woman. He spoke softly, addressing the seal. "Stand down." The seal scoffed. "Why, who are you?" The stranger showed his badge. "Department of Defense liaison. I'm not the one you need to worry about," he said, nodding toward the woman. Confusion flickered. A bartender dropped a glass. At that moment, the club lighting briefly caught the insignia on her collar. Someone gasped. "A admiral," the observer whispered. A ripple of shock spread like a tidal wave. The seal blinked. "Admiral, commander of the Pacific Fleet," the liaison announced. Silence fell like a curtain. The seal stepped back, color draining from his face. Words failed. She spoke for the first time tonight, voice calm and measured. "Respect isn't earned by force, it's recognized by integrity." Every head bowed instinctively. She continued, turning the bracelet slowly. "The ocean doesn't raise its voice, yet it shapes continents." The seal lowered his eyes. "Ma'am, she lifted a hand gently, "learn from this. Strength without humility capsizes even the strongest vessel." She didn't condemn him. She offered him a lifeline. Word spread quickly. People rose from their seats, each standing in silent respect. No applause, no cheers, just stillness. The seal stood before her, shoulders lowered, eyes red. He whispered, "Permission to make it right." She nodded. He turned and addressed the room. "Tonight, I acted without honor. The person I disrespected has commanded more lives than I can fathom, and done so with silent strength. I apologize to her and to anyone who carries invisible battles." Then, something extraordinary happened. One by one, individuals placed their hands over their hearts. Even the bartenders paused. Old veterans saluted. The music faded into memory. She walked toward the exit, passing rows of people, parting like water around a ship. Not one person spoke until she was gone. Outside, she looked up. The night sky reflected in her eyes, stars like fleet formation patterns. And although no one heard it, she whispered their names, the 4 souls on her bracelet. Every day, we walk among people whose battles we may never see. Some carry scars in silence. Some lead fleets without asking for recognition. Some endure disrespect but rise above it, not through retaliation, but through grace. Tonight's story reminds us respect is not owed to rank, but to character. True power walks quietly, and the strongest leaders don't push others aside, they lift them. If this story moved you, I invite you, world, comment where you're watching from. Share your thoughts. Have you witnessed silent strength like this? Military, subscribe for more stories that honor the unseen heroes among us. Because some of the greatest battles are fought without witnesses, and the bravest warriors never need to raise their voice. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stand for what's right, even when the world is silent.